Amen. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this meeting. Thank you for the gift of community and the gift of all that Ave has given to us. Please help this meeting to be full of your wisdom and truth, and to guide us into creating beautiful community. And we pray all this through Our Lady as we pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us
sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I'm pretty sure everybody on the call knows who I am, but just in case they do not, I'm Paula Shute. I'm the Program Manager of Alumni Relations. And this is our first meeting trying to kick off the Alumni Associations in DC, Naples, and St. Louis. And I'm going to hand the reins over to Mark. Mark, will you go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Mark Dollhopf, and I am part of the team that has been assisting, well, first President Ice and now President Nutt and the board chair, Pat Rainey, with strategic planning in this cycle. So if you haven't been part of the commission, welcome to what is essentially an offshoot of the overall strategic plan for the university that falls under the Advancement and Alumni Relations Commission. So we hope that we take the benefit of this conversation and your ideas and input and put those into the plan, which is going to be drafted some point this fall, and gives everybody the accountability for setting about the course of establishing regional alumni associations, in this case, and principally also an overarching or umbrella alumni association. So I'm going to be a little pedantic here and go through this template that I provided you, and I apologize most especially to Tim in advance that it's a Yale template. But I can assure you, I did a lot of homework.
It's one of the top universities in the country, Mark.
It may be. But we know that Ave Maria, well, I've heard Pat many times say that he wants Ave Maria to be the Princeton of Catholic universities. And I don't correct.
I just want us to be the Ave Maria of Catholic universities.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
Hold Princeton out as anything to be emulated or copied or admired these days.
So I did want to tell everybody on the call here that I had taken Yale through the strategic planning in these alumni associations. I forget the date of this, it appears on the document, but we did a complete rewrite. And we did the heavy benchmarking of Princeton and Harvard and all the other Ivies because we always get together and we always share these notes. So what you see is really an amalgamation of many different universities. And it's really kind of out there as an example. You can use it a template or not. It doesn't matter to us at Yale, that is, and certainly steal some of the best ideas and change what needs to be changed and make it your own. So. And if you are really interested in pursuing this at a more granular level, I would encourage you to contact the other Newman Guide schools and find out if they have similar guidelines for regional alumni associations. I checked with a few, and now I forget which they were because this was a while ago, but they hadn't really gotten to this level yet. And perhaps AMU can take a leadership role in actually defining what regional alumni associations might look like for the Newman Guide schools. So if everybody could just introduce themselves briefly and what area you're from, it'll help orient me. So is Isabel on the phone, on the call? Isabel, you might just want to say where you're from, and I think you're muted.
Always happens. I am Isabel Nolan. I graduated in 2013 and I live in St. Louis.
Great. Anybody speak up next?
Hey, I'm Daniel O'Rourke, graduated in 16 and I'm in St. Louis as well.
Okay.
David Bathon, graduated 14 in DC.
Dave.
Hey, I'm Dan Hillary, class of 2010. I'm actually in Louisville, Kentucky, but I dub myself within an acceptable radius to St. Louis to be interested in these proceedings.
for the time being.
Good. I recognize some familiar faces, so I don't want to cover ground that any of you have heard of, and I'm certainly open to questions, and please ask if you have comments or concerns, but I'll go through this. I'll preface this by saying this isn't rocket science, but I can tell you that you want to establish good management practices from the get-go here. And again, Tim, you can chime in, but in my experience with regional alumni associations, you're kind of looking for them to run themselves because the mothership, as we call it, or the university, really doesn't have the resources to run what could be hundreds of clubs. Yale doesn't, Princeton doesn't, I'm sure AMU will not either. We count on the good work of volunteers and their interest and engagement and willingness to put in work to keep the clubs running and to keep them inspiring and to develop a real sense of community for alumni away from campus. So to that extent, we oftentimes get people that think that the club is their own, or they use it for professional purposes, or they don't establish good management practices like keeping a budget, like showing people where money goes, like refreshing the board and getting new people in places of volunteer responsibility and not holding on to the reins of power, be it as it may, for years, if not generations. If I had to tell you the top problems that we kind of guard against in forming regional alumni associations, we want to make sure that they're all putting together activities that that are meaningful to all age groups. In AMU's case, you're all under the age of 40, but we want to protect against a regional alumni association that is only doing pub crawls, for example, or trivia nights or whatever. We want to make sure there are cultural activities. We want to make sure that there are community service activities if you are indeed interested in community service. We want to make sure that you're also doing the work of the university in several important areas. The first would be fundraising, whether it's helping the annual appeal for the university or assisting Tim and his team in major gift cultivation, or two, in admissions, in helping to recruit students and possibly working with the admissions office to interview students in advance or in addition to what they might receive at the university. I think in the case of AMU, it's more with recruiting and getting the name out there. And you might want to work with your local diocese, for example, and sometimes they do fairs around stewardship activities. And certainly if they do a college fair, which I know some dioceses do, you could man a booth or spread the word and be present when they conduct their activities so that AMU is out there. So admissions and fundraising and ensuring that there is an equal balance of activities and that they're fun and that everybody finds them meaningful are the three principal core activities around the regional alumni associations. For the purpose of this call, I'm just going to refer to them as clubs as shorthand, but you can call them clubs or regional alumni associations or whatever you call them. It's up to you. Does that all make sense? Are there any questions about the nature and why regional alumni associations exist? Or any comments? Well, I will not take silence as a lack of interest or dedication to the cause here. So I'm going to go through the list here of the templates and just touch on what I think are the important issues. I think that, as Tim said, we don't want to burden you with the organizational aspects, at least until you have a representative or a critical mass of people that can carry that. I will say there is language in here around 501c3s, and for those of you who don't know, A 501c3 is the official IRS designation for tax-exempt organizations. And we encourage our regional groups to file for 501c3. It takes a lawyer about 30 minutes to do it, and we always have volunteer lawyers at hand. And that's mostly for the purposes of organizational discipline, and also in the event that the local club wants to charge dues or fundraising activities for its own efforts, then they can get a tax deduction if they're an official 501c3, or if the university chooses to register as subchapter 501c3s, that's possible too. And I'll put that in Tim's court for a later discussion. But let me just say that the 501c3 exists in our cases because some of our clubs like to raise scholarship funds on their own, and they compete with other clubs in raising scholarships for the university. Some of them do event fundraising if they want to sponsor a Christmas dinner or something like that. So, and some raise monies as local scholarships, like they give a book award to a student from a local high school. Like it would be, I'm just spouting off the cuff here, the Ave Maria Book Award for Catholic leadership. And it would go to deserving high school students. And of course, the impetus behind that is that you want to spread the word about AMU and also create a prestigious prize among high school students. I mean, maybe you give them $100 or a book or, you know, something like that as a token. And you also encourage them to apply to Ave, the best students to apply to Ave Maria. So there are tons of universities. That would be another reason why a local club would engage in their own fundraising activities. So after you select, and you may want to have a discussion with Tim about whether you're flexible about clubs or regional alumni associations. You know, some of our clubs, they don't even use the regional appellation. They go by we have the Treasure Coast Club. We have the Sun Coast Club. I mean, they call themselves nicknames in that. And that's, again, an open question that you can discuss and meet with Tim about that. So more specifically, I'm going down the list here, the mission, I think you need this discussion about the mission of your group. And again, this might be like 3 to 5 of you sitting together and just committing to paper, you know, some ideas here to get everybody started. But I think you want to be careful. Your mission towards Ave Maria, it's the promotion of the university. As you can see in our statement here, regional clubs are dedicated to the promotion of the welfare of Yale, the preservation of its traditions and excellence in education. We add community service because that's an important element of Yale clubs everywhere, and the advancement of Yale's historically respected values. And then we have a whole list of shared values that we give to the clubs, and they put those in their bylaws. I think it helps to have a great discussion about mission to make sure that everybody is understanding that the goal of the club is not just about what we get as alumni, but we are empowered and inspired to give as alumni back to the university. I think that's the important dynamic here. Many people think that clubs are only, oh, this is a new benefit for me as an alum. And yes, there are many benefits, that's true, but the real spirit of these regional alumni associations is to give back to the university, is to give back to the next student, the next generation of students, and to give back to the community. Would you say that's a fair assessment, Tim?
Absolutely. And I would hope that given to the particular charism of Ave Maria, that the charters would also talk about supporting one another in their Catholic faith, in their Catholic life.
Right. You can see the bullet points are wrapped up under purposes, and I've covered that in a nutshell. I think it's also, it bears comment, especially in today's polarized environment, that as a 501c3, and this is another reason why we promote 501c3s, you are not to engage in political activities. So we have alumni, as will you, that want to support Trump or want to support Biden or feel strongly about these issues, again, given our polarized environment. But it is not the role, 501cs cannot engage in that kind of activity. You can be a fundraising organization, but it's not going to be a 501c3. I forget if anybody's on the phone or the call here that's an expert. I forget the tax code delegation. You can become a political, essentially a political action committee or a political organization, but you can't take tax deductions necessarily for that.
There's a 501c4 and a 50 or a super PAC.
Yeah.
Or a PAC.
I think a C4 is a professional association.
And then C6 is like an athletic association. But
Yeah, you have to look.
C4s can be involved in politics.
Oh, they can? Okay.
They just can't necessarily be involved in campaigns directly.
Right.
I think we would want to avoid any appearance of political endorsement of a candidate. Now, that
100%
doesn't
agree.
mean, that doesn't, well, issues more than candidates. Certainly it's appropriate to support candidates who support the Catholic Church's position on the sanctity of marriage or on the sanctity of life. But I think we would want to avoid things that might jeopardize our tax exempt status.
Yeah, good, okay. So under Article 4, I've jumped down, limitations and restrictions. And this is one of the areas where a well-established protocol and organizational discipline comes into play. And I don't know whether you'll encounter this, but it's a great idea to safeguard yourself. Some clubs are able to raise a lot of money. For whatever reason, somebody dies and leaves them money because they happen to cherish their local connections and they had fun. And we want to make sure that the board of directors and specifically the chair of the board, they don't spend this money on themselves. Okay, none of this income is to inure to the benefit of the board of directors. These are all charitable funds entrusted to the organization. You can pass them along directly to Ave Maria or engage in charitable activities, but they're not for throwing yourselves a party, which we run into a lot, right? So you really need to be careful about how these monies are spent. And of course, you'll want to be utterly transparent. And, you know, quite frankly, even if it's a couple $100 or even it's like $1,000, I mean, people will wonder if you ask them all for a commitment of $20 or whatever, and you should probably get in the habit of at least having people understand that the club is going to thrive based on their participation and contributions, and not because the university is going to write them big checks. I don't know if Ave Maria is prepared to support its clubs. Well, I'll ask you directly, Tim. Are you prepared to give them a little funding, or they're pretty much on their own?
I think we, and when you say a little funding, I think we're talking 3-digit funding.
Yeah, I would.
But yeah, if there are some expenses to get things up and running, if a club needs some seed capital to host its first event or a recruitment drive, absolutely. Ave Maria is prepared to invest in getting that up and running. But fairly quickly, the clubs need to become self-sustaining activities and entities. And that's not a huge burden. I mean, again, the universities that Mark and I are affiliated with are 300-year-old institutions that have very large alumni populations. So there's 400 members of the Princeton Club of Southwest Florida. The membership dues are $125 a year. That's $50,000 a year budget just from the membership dues. And then they hold fundraising events twice a year that fund scholarships that we award to students from our region who attend the university. And we also do support charitable activities and endeavors in the local community.
Yeah. So again, recognizing that this is all a startup, I would just want you to create good habits around the management of money, because this is all, if there's going to be a problem with a club, this is where it's going to arise. So you have to be very careful. You might ask, how do you get money? Well, Tim just said if there are good reasons, they might be able to offer some seed money. clubs raise money from in a variety of ways through that they charge dues. Some of them eschew the idea of dues and raise it only through voluntary contributions. Some of them do fundraising dinners. Some of them have bake sales. Some of them have, they charge a little bit extra for an event. For example, if you wanted to do a family day at the Naples Zoo, they might charge everybody $50 and the admission is $35, and the club keeps 15 of that, just as not just as overhead, but as a way to provide seed money for the next activity. It requires some careful thought, but you need to be transparent. And as you can see here, if there's ever a case where a club is dissolved, the monies that might still be in a budget accrue to the university. They're not distributed among the members themselves. That may make sense to everybody on the Zoom call today, but I'm constantly amazed at the number of educated people that I come across that think that the money that they raise is theirs and they're going to distribute it among themselves as they see fit. The next issue that we kind of covered is political activities and free discourse. We've covered that. Exempt activities, you have to look under the 501c3 codes to make sure that you're in compliance. I'm not going to go into that now. You may not even be tempted to launch a 501c3 at this point. We always put in a point about diversity, equity, and inclusion, meaning, and I think it needs to be stated that you're not going to discriminate on reason of race, creed, age, color, religion, national ethnic origin, political belief, military. I mean, we put that all in there. You can see it fit as to what you would choose to use or not. But just to make sure that everyone who is a AMU alum is invited and feels welcome. Distribution of income I've covered, self-dealing I've covered, membership. It might appear obvious to you that it would be people with an AMU degree that are eligible for membership, but actually we define alumni as anybody that attended one semester of a degree program at the university. So you don't necessarily have to have been graduated with a degree. It could be, if you spent a semester there, you're welcome as part of the family. We also welcome current students. We welcome, go ahead, Tim, did you have something to say?
I was just going to say, in part of my research, I looked at universities that have really high esprit de corps alumni groups, and Texas A&M definitely qualifies. And that their alumni group is the Association of Former Students of Texas A&M University. So they don't even use the word alumni. So.
Wow, that's interesting. I wonder why they do that, actually.
Probably because they have a high number of people who didn't graduate, but who still feel attached to the university.
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, though, that excludes parents, spouses, widows. We include all those people. Quite frankly, we find that if we welcome spouses, we encourage group activity, even if the spouse did not go to the university. We invite current and former members of the faculty. We invite postdocs. You don't have postdocs, I don't think. But also honorary degree recipients. In other words, we're anybody, frankly, if you're interested in belonging to the AMU club, why wouldn't we welcome you? I mean, if you're going to support the activities, and you buy into our values and what it is that we represent, why wouldn't you have it? And I had to fight through those barriers at Yale.
Mark, you raise a really interesting point. I think most of the people on this call are aware that in the early days of Ave Maria University, a huge effort was made to gather supporters who were called Founders Club members. And 24,000 people stepped forward and pledged $10 a month for 1 year to become a founder of Ave Maria University.
Wow, what a great group to tap into.
And over about 7 or 8 years ago, a decision was made, I'm not going to get into the details, to disband the gathering of the Founders Club members. They would meet regionally, quarterly, sometimes monthly. And as one Founders Club member said, we met at the Holiday Inn and we had a lousy chicken dinner. It was the highlight of the year for me, because they loved Ave. They loved being part of Tom Monahan's vision They wanted to support you guys as undergraduates going to Ave Maria. They've been kind of orphaned with nothing for them to be a part of since the Founders Clubs were disbanded. And as you begin to gather your alumni in your regions, it might make a ton of sense to invite Founders Club members in your geographic regions to become members of, because we called them our faith alumni. That's what we told them that they would be. They were our first alumni. They were the faith alumni of Ave. That might be a really interesting thing to see if that could jumpstart an extra 10 or 20 dues-paying members into your organization.
Well, it could be more than that. What's your total database, Tim, on that?
There's 17,000 founders that we still have a mailable address for.
I mean, you could have in the St. Louis area, you could have 1,000 people.
Yeah, in certain communities, yeah. In Naples, more than 1,000 people. St. Louis might have 50 or 100.
Yeah. Huh. Boy, that's a great potential source to tap into. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'd be looking for activities, especially since they haven't heard from the university in some time. So.
And they're looking for a connection. All of you represent what they invested in, was to produce faithful Catholic alumni.
Yeah.
And perhaps I'm being a little presumptuous, but but you are, they gave to help you get the education you got at Ave Maria, and you are they're proud of your being alums of the university that when they sent their money into Tom was a tomato field.
Wow.
The university will provide this for us if we were to go there.
Yeah, we can certainly assist with providing the names and addresses of the founders in a geographic poll of your area. For example, St. Louis, we could certainly, go from, Springfield to Belleville, Illinois, over to Cape Girardeau, and as far, even if it's too far geographically for people to travel, just getting an invitation is a reminder that they're part of this university community in an important way.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a great segue actually into the list and its proprietary nature. So the local club, typically it's the board chair, and you just may have a committee chair in the beginning stages, is entrusted with the list of alumni from the local area. And you need to keep it holy, so to speak. And this might include the list of the founders, which could be substantial in some areas. And it would be my recommendation that whenever you send out an announcement for an activity or an event or a project, that it be run through the university to make sure that it's not interfering with other events or whatever may occur, regional or not. And it's also incumbent upon the person in the area who is taking responsibility for this to make sure that the list is not used for professional or business purposes. Or if you lock onto a list of key donors like this founders group, that the local Right to Life committee in St. Louis asks you to give them your list for fundraising purposes, that would be a no-no. We don't take Ave Maria's list and use it for outside groups fundraising purposes unless it's specifically authorized by the board of trustees or the president. Am I in line with your thinking there, Tim?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it just, and again, this is one of the areas where we might have trouble with clubs. They get a bunch of what they think of as wealthy Yale donors, and all of a sudden, every local nonprofit wants to tap into the list. So the local preservation society says, well, can we send this to all of your alumni? Well, no, you can't.
Is there something to sign like a confidentiality agreement or something? Like when I've worked in I work fundraising for a school here, and like we are supposed to sign that we're not going to share any of the donor information or anything.
Yep.
Good, good, good. Now we get into the board of directors. And let me say this, and I'm going to echo what I think Tim would have you all know. We don't want organizational strictures here to get in the way of your having fun activities or moving forward. I mean, you don't have to sit down and register as a 501c3 and have a board of directors and et cetera before you start doing things. I think the point here is to start doing things, and you'll grow into this.
Exactly.
As you see the need with critical mass to be a bit more organized. If it's a handful of you organizing these activities, which for the most part is going to be, with maybe the exception of Naples, then keep it informal and keep it fun. And you'll probably recognize on your own when it's going to be time to actually form a board of directors and perhaps register as a 501c3. But that's entirely, I assume, Tim, a local decision. Yes. Absolutely.
I think when a club reaches critical mass, I think at a minimum every club should have a president. There should be a president of the club, and then the second office position should be the treasurer, and the president might wear the hat of recruitment chair until such time as it makes sense to have a bigger recruitment chair. I think our club here in Florida, there's a president and there's a vice president, and the vice president job is literally to shadow the president for his 2-year term and then step into the presidency. So you accept the vice presidency. It's a 4-year position, 2 years as vice president and then 2 years as president. So there's always a building out there. There's a treasurer. There's a social director, a person who puts together the program of activities for the year. And then there's a fundraising chair who just oversees our local fundraising efforts. And then we have as Mark alluded, we award $4,000 scholarships to rising high school seniors who provide an essay to us on a book that we choose each year for them to read.
Yeah, which I think is a nice idea for AMU in the Catholic high schools. I mean, it raises awareness. I mean, imagine if you're at the high school graduation ceremony for St. Joseph's Academy. I'm just picking a name out of the hat. And in the commencement program and on the stage, someone is awarded the Ave Maria University Book Award for excellence in leadership or excellence in scholarship or something like that. What a great way to spread the word about AMU, and the kid who gets it doesn't have to be applying to AMU or even has to go. It's just an award that you give to a high school student to raise awareness about AMU in your local communities. And Tim can talk to the cows come home about that, as Princeton has a really engaged and active program in that regard. A lot of schools do. But I've always thought that it was a great way to get your foot in the door. And I know that the Admissions Commission for Ave Maria is desperately trying to capture the attention of Catholic high schools. And they're seeking the input and engagement of local alumni, because the AMU does not have the admissions staff to do what needs to be done. And if local alumni are willing to take on that'd be seventh heaven for them. So I put that out there as a great opportunity for all of you.
Really saw used to great effect was University of Detroit, which is a Jesuit university in the city of Detroit. They began inviting their alums to go to a mass mob at a historic church in the city of Detroit. And then they pick a restaurant to go out to for brunch afterward. And they got a lot of alums there. So it was not at all uncommon for them to get 150 or 200 people to meet for mass at a really historic Detroit church. And these were often churches that were serving primarily an inner city community. So the mass mob group stuck out from the typical congregation.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but it was really fun and really cool. And then they'd make arrangements when they got big enough that they'd just basically take over a restaurant after mass. And, they have the whole place reserved for the group. And it was just, a 4 times a year, they did a mass mob. And they also invited high school students to join them to get to know their alumni
Oh,
and
that's
promote the school.
That's neat. Yeah, no lack of ideas, that's for sure. I think one of the lessons here in terms of a board of directors or any leadership, if it's not going to be called a board of directors, is you want to make sure that it's not the same person doing the same thing all the time. So number one, they don't burn out, and number two, they don't become resentful. We want to make sure that everybody has a hand in helping organize activities to the extent necessary. Now, again, I mean, you may only decide to have 1 or 2 activities a year, and that's great. I mean, so you don't have to worry so much about spreading the workload around. I'm just pointing out to you some of the stumbling blocks that occur with volunteer organizations. I'm approaching now the standing committees here, and it helps to have alumni dedicated to these tasks, whether you have committees or not, or whether it's just a few people that are interested. I think you'll want to establish the practice of helping Tim and the Office of Development raise funds, especially annual funds. And you may want to conduct your own supplemental fundraising drive every year. I mean, I'll let Tim engineer that. But I think everybody, while they initially shun the idea of fundraising, it should be seen, and we hope that our local clubs serve as an inspiration and treat it as a celebration of the gifts that we have and what it is that we've received from Ave Maria. So there's a lot of inculcating of the culture of stewardship and the grateful response that we should all have. And, you may organize a fundraising dinner as part of the annual drive, or maybe you're doing a local scholarship program on your own. But I think it's important to focus on the fundraising and not let it go by the boards. The same with outreach and community relations. It's really been within the past 15 years, the opportunity for universities to engage in a day of service, where all the alumni from a university in a local area decide to work together to support a local nonprofit or nonprofits or churches or whatever the case is. It's a demonstration that, in this case, Ave Maria alumni are prepared to lead and to demonstrate through good works how it is that they share the values of Ave Maria. So oftentimes we had committees geared around that. The next is admissions, and I think you'll want to work closely with Dee Gibson about how to involve alumni. I know she's looking forward to establishing what many universities call an alumni schools committee, or an opportunity for alumni to be involved in the recruitment and interview process. So, for example, Dee might get an application from St. Louis from a student from Central Catholic University, and she would alert the local club there that this student has applied, and the student might get the local alumni that says, "Hey, heard you applied to Ave Maria. What can I tell you about it? How can I help you in your application process? And would you like to get together for a cup of coffee?" Or you know what, to help build the relationship and, quite frankly, to recruit, which we sorely need at AMU. So you might have some people that find this particularly meaningful and want to dedicate time to working on a committee to do that. So those are some of the ideas, what we call standing committees, which every club usually have. And then there are ad hoc committees. So you might have special initiatives like a Christmas dinner, or Annunciation is a big celebration at Ave Maria, is it not, Paula?
Yes, I think Paul stepped out for just a minute, but yeah.
No,
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm still here. I'm sorry, Mark, can you repeat the question?
No, or Tim can answer it. I mean, I was thinking about,
Yeah, the Feast of
you already
Annunciation.
have a tradition around Annunciation, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So you might want to continue that tradition locally and have a dinner and mass and everything to celebrate the Annunciation. And to that extent, I would encourage everyone to think about a special activity that becomes part of the tradition of your club. like all of our clubs were known for like some special kind of activity. I mean, I can't even name them all. I mean, the Christmas dinner or a Halloween party, or you know, we don't celebrate religious occasions because we're a secular university. But what are some others, Tim? What's
Well,
the big event for the Princeton alumni in Southwest Florida? There must be some signature events.
Well, it's usually one of the musical groups, one of the a cappella singing groups coming to town. But also we do have the Christmas luncheon is a big deal. That is a major event. For those of you who are absolutely bored to tears of Mark and I talking about our alma maters, I apologize, but Princeton has a tradition for the major reunions that you get a blazer that your class decorates. They're absolutely garish, orange and black, hideous creations that my wife can't believe I would ever wear in public. But it's super fun because each class has a different blazer. So the Christmas party, to see 50 years of class blazers on display on the men and women who are alums is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But
I for one think it's a ridiculous tradition, and I don't know why they embarrass themselves in such a way.
well, you know,
But I would encourage.
we're the junior school, Mark.
I would encourage AMU to think
I'm
about.
going to go put my blazer on right now.
You keep it in the office?
I'm not in the office. I'm home.
Oh. You can tell people how they're buried in those jackets too. But I would encourage you to think in terms of establishing your own fun traditions, because this is a way to establish awareness among your alumni, and it gets them into habit when they know every year there's an upcoming special event around Annunciation or Christmas or
Just
whatever the case might be.
just as an example, when I lived in Chicago, the Princeton Club of Chicago, their big tradition was the annual trip to a Cubs game. You know, that was a big deal. They had a bunch of tickets. They had about 100 tickets every year, and it was just a lot of fun. And you know, so I know I bring this up because I know St. Louis is one of the clubs that is here, and I'm told that there's a baseball team in the city of St. Louis. and, but that
We have one.
I think
We have one in DC too, Tim. So let's not.
I
let's not
know the
forget that.
Nationals are quite the club, but I think the Catholic Church's insistence on subsidiarity as an operating principle should be our operating modus as well. You know what works best in your community, and it would be silly for Paula and I to sit here in Ave Maria and try to tell you what's going to work in DC or in St. Louis. We might have some clue about Naples, but I think as long as you know, these very, very loose barriers of avoiding political endorsement of candidates. Obviously, we don't want to get involved in anything that is in conflict with the teachings of the values of the Catholic Church, but I don't see that as a problem or a concern here. I think that you should figure out what is something that's relevant to your community that makes sense, and that's a natural affiliation or affinity draw.
Yeah, so I'll kind of draw this to a close in the interest of time, and also to open up for a few questions and answers. But I think the lessons to come away with this are that you're a satellite operation of the university, and you're expected to run yourself and police yourself and to put good practices in place. You know, you cannot rely on the university to send out your notices or to organize activities on your behalf. There may be occasions when the university is able to do that, and you know, maybe the president comes to town and the development office will want to, you know, organize that themselves, those kind of special events. But you need to think about how we behave as a responsible organization. The one part that I didn't cover about 501c3 status, it's been a big, hey, there it is. The color doesn't come out so well though on the video. Is it plaid?
Oh, it's hideous. It's tigers.
Yeah. Well, I could think everybody can see why it's such an awful tradition. Given
Can we make some of those for homecoming, Tim? On it?
What are Ave
Sadly,
Maria
this is-
colors?
This is a reminder that I'm slightly larger than I was 9 years ago at the 25th reunion.
Paul, I kid Tim and jest. It's a really cool tradition. And what you don't realize is that every single class year designs their own blazer.
Oh, wow.
So none of the class years are alike.
Yeah, there.
They're every combination in the world of orange and black and cream, as it turns out, and some other colors. So it's a really cool tradition. The one issue that I left out was indemnification, and also one thing that our clubs began to worry about a lot. If you have a Christmas party and somebody trips and falls and injures themselves, you want to make sure that the club and the people that organize it are protected against lawsuits. This, I mean, it happens, let's just face it. And so you want to make sure that you have appropriate insurance coverage. And in normal cases, the university can extend their coverage, but regionally, it's not necessarily a gimme, and it has to be investigated. And it's probably something, Paula, that you on your end can investigate to see.
We can talk to Gene Noonan and our insurance broker and see what we're able to offer in terms of indemnification for local club events.
Yeah. So let me open it up to any questions or queries or any concerns, or how can I help at this point? And I should say that my colleague and I will not be with the university after the end of next week. So you're in good hands with Paula and with Tim, as you heard today. I mean, I don't feel like I'm leaving anybody hanging here, and you certainly have some templates, but how is it that I might address any of your needs right now?
I, for one, am just curious about what the immediate next steps would be. It sounds like the school's identified 3 areas, 3 target cities or locations to kind of serve as pilots for, an alumni association. So I'm wondering what comes next. What are the immediate next steps?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll jump in and say I think that it's incumbent on Paul and I to take advantage of the next 10 days of time with Mark and put together a roadmap, an action plan to help each of the regions that we're going to pilot this in. And I think step 1 would be to create a form of communication to all of the alumni and possibly Founders Club members who live within a geographic region that makes sense, and inform them that the alumni club, the Ave Maria University Alumni Club of Naples, St. Louis, Washington, D.C., et cetera, is getting started, that we have a need for people to volunteer to help it get it up and running, and perhaps target an initial activity that would coalesce the club into some kind of activity or action. Even if it's a save the date for a Christmas party 3 months down the road or 4 months down the road.
Yeah. So just to amplify that a little bit, and again, I'm speaking extemporaneously, you might want to send out, with Paula's help, an email to everybody in your area, and you might want to include the Founders Club people and say, we'd like to welcome everybody to an organizing meeting of the Ave Maria Alumni Association of St. Louis. And, you can do a picnic or a luncheon or just a regular meeting. And once you have everybody assembled, you want to get excited about the kind of activities that can be held. And I think from that organizing meeting, you want to put together a committee of those that are interested in helping organize what that event, as Tim suggested, might be. And, just get a great event under your belts, right? Something that feels good and everybody has a great time, and, take it from there to organize the next event. If everybody has a good time, they're all gonna walk away saying, wow, what can we do next?
I'd like to, excuse me, wow. If I could play devil's advocate for a second on the Founders Club component.
Okay.
First of all, I think it's a great idea to bring them in. I mean, they've provided so much for us. My concern is earlier, since we are such a young university and our alumni are all under 40, if we bring in the founders component and they're really excited and all of a sudden they outnumber, we have a large group of much older people joining our much younger alumni group, I have a feeling my fear would be that we'd lose some of the alumni who would be like, well, I don't want to, they could overpower
Dave,
the alumni. I'd want to wait until we're a little more established personally, and then absolutely involve them. I just don't want to scare off.
I think that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. I think if
Yeah.
you get the alumni group up and running, you're active, and then maybe once a year you have an event that you invite the founders to join the Alumni Association. And guys, I'll be perfectly honest, the Founders Club members were people who donated in 2003, and the average age is getting close to about 85. So this isn't an audience that's I think going to be overwhelmingly large, but there are some younger Founders Club members.
And
Dave,
they get excited. They're very
makes sense.
excitable. I mean, we're working with development. You put on a call, they were very proud of what they did, and they were really want to be really involved. And I think that's great. If I get 20 people to show up to a meeting in DC, and then all of a sudden there are 30 founders who are all 70 or above,
I hear you. Totally hear you. I just want to point out that my wife.
That's just that's my only thought.
I want to point out my wife just.
I do like the jacket, Tim. I love the jacket idea.
Any other comments or suggestions?
I think my suggestion would be, this was awesome and there was a lot of information, but I think none of us are ready to do this quite yet with everything that was sent in the email, which is very useful. But I think we would appreciate, as we're trying to sit out, if you could do something within the next 6 months and then a year, just kind of following up once we've established the next step, just like getting more support from the university to kind of run through some of these on the list, because it's all very exciting, but it's also nothing we can do quite yet. So getting help then would be very useful.
Good.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll crawl, then we'll walk, then we'll run.
Just not to bother everyone again. I would actually say, as soon as I'd love to get rolling with some people in DC. As soon as I'm still finishing my organization's 2020 audit, but when that's done, I think I'd like to start moving to DC. We had a kind of a informal alumni group previously, and I think we could resurrect that and actually start moving here, because we did have so many people involved. So
Nice. You're a nonprofit manager or a fundraiser, right? Do I recall that?
I run operations for a 501c3, C4, and a super PAC.
Oh, great. So you can be the resident expert. Those
Exactly.
are great.
God help us all. God help us all.
We're all gonna call you, Dave.
Yep.
That's right. Well,
I'd like to use the university lawyers though for our don't ask me legal advice.
Well, again, I can only echo Tim's wisdom here, and crawling before you're walking, before you're running, and make sure that everybody has a good time. And I only provided all of this so that you have an idea sheet and a template and understand the direction which things can go, which may take years to grow into. So this is by no means an instruction sheet for how to get started. It's just an idea sheet for future reference. But let me say this, I wish you all the best. I can tell you that being attached to my university was life-changing for me, which is why I chose the career path and wound up doing what I did. I enjoyed the company of fellow alumni and the inspiration that I got. I enjoyed celebrating the traditions and especially the shared values that we all had. And I hope you see your regional groups as a cause for celebration and for inspiration. From the day I was graduated, I asked the question, how can I give back? And engaging in alumni and exciting and inspiring other alumni is one of the most vital ways for the mission of Ave Maria for you to be able to give back. So.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, thank you very
everyone.
much.
No problem.
Everybody have a great night. And Tim, you said we'll kind of work in the next 10 days to create that next step.
Yep.
We'll do that and then we'll reach out. so we can get rolling with all these.
Yep.
Okay, see you in a few minutes, Paula.
I'll see you soon, Mark. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Right.